Hello and welcome to another edition of Salt Talk. I'm Julia Sherwin with PTZOptics, joined by my fellow panelists, Stephen Heywood and Jeremy Kloosterman. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Here we are in our first, second full week of summer here, and summer streaming, lots happening in houses of worship across the country. And we're going to talk about those things today, specifically what you need to think about when it comes to the vacation Bible schools that are happening right now throughout the country, now until the end of the summer. What does that look like for people who may be in person and remote? The country is really going back to life as it was pre-COVID. But I just wanted to take you through some interesting news stories that I found recently regarding, technology and how everyone has really had to step up their games in this last 14, 15 months since the pandemic shut everything down. And I was really struck by this article because there's different levels of entry point for houses of worship, and many folks are older and did not have a lot of access to live streaming and other technologies. They just had to start at the very ground level. And what I found interesting about this article was just something simple like recording your service on a CD. Things like that helped congregants and church leaders and technologists get their message out there and continue to be able to evangelize during this time where so many people were isolated. So there's really many levels of that technology. You can start down here and then go up here, and I think that's really what we like to talk about in Salt Talk, and talking about that whole evolution. What have you both found, Stephen and Jeremy, in your houses of worship? I mean, I'm sure you've worked with all different types of people who are, super high tech, to those who are just like, I just need it to work.
Yeah, yeah. So my church specifically, we had to pivot to outdoor services, which was huge. As far as our elderly congregation, we're not a huge congregation, so we didn't have a big hurdle to cross there. But with churches that I work with, a big one was a partnership with my company Resi and another company called Phone Live Streaming, where elderly congregation members can actually call in to a number and listen to the live stream, which was huge. We saw a lot of churches adding that as a service to their live streaming capabilities. And we've seen a lot of creative workflows of getting live streams into retirement communities, which I know you guys did. I'm pretty sure PTZ Optics did a big story on that as well early on. So just reaching into those retirement communities where they were really locked up and protected, just being able to reach those people was awesome.
Yeah, I think for us too is accessing other mediums. Julia, you mentioned about CDs. That's something we've been doing for many years. But one thing we started getting into is making it more widely available on the web via YouTube, Vimeo, all these different places to have the service there, and also thumb drives. Believe it or not, people had requested to be able to bring a thumb drive. They'll hook it to their keychain, and then after the service, we can just stick them in, and in a matter of 30 seconds, have the service, the audio portion, if that's what they want, on their thumb drives and ready to go. So that's been something that's kind of branching away from the CD side of things. But I think putting your services in different mediums, where before the pandemic you really never gave it much thought.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And what I wanted to really illustrate, which was so great in that article, was that the coming together and creating that community. So live streaming, and we talk about it a lot, can sort of lean on the really high tech side of things. But I mean, at the end of the day, you need to make sure that there's connection. So if they have to utilize a thumb drive or a CD, or just as Jeremy mentioned, call into the service, that may be the very bottom level. You're starting there, and then you can acquire knowledge as you continue with this journey and your house of worship to get to the point where, maybe older folks are more comfortable with live streaming.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
I love how you bring in the community aspect, because like I said, one big part that Resi provides is uh, a decoder. So we have our big multi-site platform where we do an encode to decode. And so churches were partnering with retirement communities that they could put a decoder into, and then have remote access to just play that out in the community center of those retirement communities. So it would still bring the community aspect into the retirement community, um, and then they don't have to have the technological know-how to play out those services, because somebody from the church is remoting into their system and just playing it out at a specific time for them.
So it is just simply a plug and play scenario at that point.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's important. And, we are looking at more and more news stories about, what's happening right now. People are coming back. They are regathering, as you can see here. What are some of those important things to think about, though? A lot of congregants are still going to remain remote. Church facilities may need to be reconfigured, right? There's a lot of different things that are potentially happening. Even digital giving is going to increase by about 70%. So, I mean, these are some exciting things that, even though the world is getting back to normal, some of these technological changes in the very operating infrastructure of houses of worship are going to be forever changed. What do you think?
Yeah, again, we've seen a huge uptick in overflow spaces, because they're running their main auditoriums at a lower capacity, but they may have other rooms at the church that they can set up as overflow. So we have a lot of churches doing that, and some of those overflow spaces are more casual, so they might not start the service right at the exact same time as the main auditorium. So they want the ability to time slip that, and we can help out drastically with that. But the biggest shift I think we've seen is trying to learn and wrap their head around, okay, I've been pre-recording these services and either posting them, premiering them on Facebook or YouTube, however they do that. But now that shift to, oh, I have all this time to pre-record and produce a nice product. How do I do this live? Get the live community and the in-house, and that's been a challenge for a lot of churches.
I agree. I think separating the pre-recorded from the live. I mean, we're coming up. We're talking about summer streaming and everything coming from outside for some churches to now back in, or limited capacity where they're doing every other row, and they had the time to, because they weren't doing a lot of pre-service stuff or classes maybe that they were running, Sunday schools, things like that. They had the time to pre-record all that content that was going out during the week. Well, now that stuff is back, do they have the time during the week? Is that hybrid model going to suffice? Is that something that you're going to have enough staff and people to do that? That's a huge question.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think going back to the community aspects, one of the features that we offer at Resi is the ability to put a PTZ camera in those remote facilities and bring a feed back to the main auditorium. So although it's not in real time, it does show the pastor, like, hey, I can see the audience there. I can see who's in the room. So that's a big thing, is how to, I don't want to forget those people in overflow spaces, even though they're live. Typically they've gotten used to communicating directly to the camera and the people watching on the live stream. But how do I get those people engaged that are live together in a community and engage them?
Stephen, you brought up a great point about just the resources to get it done. So I know with our church, we have different committees. So for instance, new family committee, or, if you just had a baby, there's a committee for that. They go out and, help people who've recently added to their family. Are you noticing more and more houses of worship are starting to develop like a live streaming committee, or like a production, a media committee?
That was something we started years ago when we first started streaming. Just like you have like your sound engineers, your guys that are doing the sound in the booth. We have a media team that handles it. It's comprised of a lot of youth, believe it or not. They like to get involved and they're very creative with the video aspect of things. And so it's difficult um, to keep that going because obviously kids have things going on throughout the summer. But again, we can get the community involved with doing that. But you also have to remember is that even though the vaccines are out and everything's going on, people are still skeptical. People are still not sure about coming back, and you still have to nurture that online audience. And even I think like I know we're doing a lot of different community events just to welcome people back into the doors of the church.
Hmm.
Such a great point. Vacation Bible School specifically are catered to children, and
Yep.
those under 12 cannot get the vaccine.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a trying time. Like right now in our family, um, there's five of us. I have three children. Two are vaccinated and one is not. So, we go out places, and our youngest is wearing the mask and the older two aren't. So it is, some families who have children who have underlying health conditions may say, you know what, like we're going to sit this summer out as well, but we can access this content in other ways.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and one thing that we've been able to help a lot of churches with that are doing like Vacation Bible School, or we've seen a lot of summer camps reach out to us and say, hey, with summer camp, yes, although families have taken the step to send their kids to summer camp, some of them may, have a fever or something that, some concern while they're at camp and have to be quarantined, or just, they may sit out a couple of sessions just to make sure that there's nothing more going on. But they want to keep those students engaged while they're in that space. So being able to offer a live stream in like a hangout room or something where they may have a couple of these kids quarantined, it has been huge. So they give a video access of live stream what's going on in other parts of the camp, to try and keep that engagement level there, because they've invested a lot to go to the summer camps. um, but then, like you said, with Vacation Bible School, it's one of those community outreach things that I think the communities around specific churches need, just to build up morale and to have fun with the kids, and it's a great way to reach a community, with the gospel, is to share that out and do live stream events just to keep the kids active.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and Julie, I think there's something to be said. Like we watch all these reality TV shows on TV about, that third screen experience, right? With using your mobile device, like if you're watching like an American Idol or something like that, where you get to vote. And I think the church needs to adopt that as well. Technology is progressing, right? So being able to engage these folks in a third screen experience could be that glue that brings everything together potentially.
Well, something else that occurred to me, we have a very robust vacation Bible school in our area that all my children have attended, and even been counselors at. And on the final day, so it's, Monday through Friday, on the final day, they have like a performance where all the different groups sing, and, everyone comes to an outdoor amphitheater. Sometimes those days are really hot, mid 90s, and you've got elderly people who just are struggling. And, the pandemic notwithstanding, this a live stream or a video component offers a great opportunity for elderly people to sit out, in some place cool and be able to watch their grandchild
Yep.
perform.
Yeah, no, that's great, and yeah, just being able to offer that, as some grandparents have moved away. I know, originally being from Michigan, there's a lot of people who travel south in the summer and just travel generally. So being able to offer that and not have to stick to a specific schedule. I have to be here for this event. It's really opened up a lot of people's eyes to see, like, hey, we can keep reaching our same people, or as they're traveling, I can stay connected to my home church and not have to find a church on the road as we do summer vacation or something.
So, are you guys prepared to talk about sort of the nitty gritty, the technical aspects? As I mentioned, for instance, I'm very curious because our local church that does this VBS every year has this amphitheater style outdoor space. Is that really tricky to try to start incorporating camera and sound technologies out there? What are some of the things that House of Worship technologists and volunteers and leaders, what do they need to look for when considering something like this?
I would say because we kind of did that as a church, we pivoted to an outdoor space. A big thing is controlled lighting. A big outdoor amphitheater, if it's not covered, you can think, oh, it's great, it's going to have a lot of light, but then that light is too harsh at times, or whatever. And light, it's amazing how much light affects video and being able to get a good quality experience for people watching a stream. So lighting is a big thing, and so outdoor amphitheater can be really hard to light, and so there's so many manufacturers out there that provide good quality products for lighting a space like that. But then again, the camera, you have to have an amazing camera with great sensors, which I know PTZOptics, they do an amazing job with their cameras. So it's a whole combination of things like that with producing that good video.
Yeah, I know with setting up, as Jeremy said, we didn't really do the outdoor services. We just kind of limited how many people could actually come into the building. But for VBS this year, we're already set up within the sanctuary for uh, the kids and the productions and things like that. And our theme this year is superhero training, and so I will be playing one of the superheroes. I'll be doing Spider-Man as I've done before, and so I have to rely on my tech team, to handle that. And we're gonna stream it. But then the challenge comes in, Julia, when the kids do some outside events, because obviously you can't have superhero training without obstacle courses and things like that outside. Maybe even a zip line or two. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Uh, so, so how do you do that, right? So I have a LiveView Solo from the company LiveView, and I plan on hooking that up to a camcorder that's going to have like a shotgun mic on it, because it's something that I can utilize and get the audio into it and send it back to our vMix machine in the booth, uh, you know, via RTMP, and just do it on that, because I have a server set up for that. Now, I understand not everybody can get that technical, but I've already been thinking about ways to do that, because we've done tailgate parties at the beginning. Like, we start out football season, we do tailgating for Jesus, so we have people come out, and it's a great way, just again, community, bringing in people from the community.
Hmm.
So I'm not new to doing stuff like this, so this should be just run of the mill. I think we'll be able to get going. But if you don't have that, you carry one of these, don't you? So
Everybody does, right?
with a lot of the technology now, as long as you can reach your network, or if you do happen to have a server, there's different software out there. NDI, they have an NDI camera. You can send that back to your sound booth. If I would encourage churches, like if you do have an outside setting, um, you set up a hotspot or an extender for your network, maybe at your picnic area. If there's a plug, you can bounce off of that, so you can get that video. Just pull it into your vMix, Wirecast, OBS, whatever you're using. Um, I mean, Julia, that's the surefire way of doing it. Ju-
So if you were to, look at this from kind of a ground up, you're just starting out. First thing, you got to make sure you have that strong internet.
Yep, you have to have the internet. You have to have a network infrastructure that can handle it. Obviously, Jeremy, you can't be hardwired all the time. So, uh,
Well, and you saw me fidgeting around trying to find something, and I was actually going to bring that up. So with the encoders that we produce at Resi, they're super portable. It's an Intel NUC. Maybe if we get a second, or maybe we do it on another show and we show it, but it's a small portable computer, and if you have like one of these USB modems that you can plug into it, you can go totally mobile with it. You just need a power source, and so like having an outdoor space with just a simple camera plugged into that encoder and running an LTE modem, you can get an amazing quality stream just that way. So yeah, there you can see the Ray encoder. But I actually had to do that this past Sunday at my church because there was a massive internet outage in our area. So I took my USB modem here and plugged it into that front USB port, and was still able to put out a great quality stream. But it made me think of like, hey, those outdoor spaces, you don't always have internet. So how do I get that plugged in? Unfortunately, Apple shut down the ability to tether an iPhone easily. But if you have an Android phone, you can literally plug your Android into one of those USB ports and use it as a tether to tether right off your phone. So that's another great tool for those outdoor spaces.
Yeah. So those are some important products you mentioned from Resi. You mentioned the Live View, Stephen. An Android phone. I mean, these are all like kind of ways to start. And then, would you say that once you ensure that you have an ability to stream, you've got that connection, then you really need to look at those things like the lighting and making sure that what your product is, what you're delivering isn't completely washed out or underlit.
I,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, even with a cell phones. I mean, Jeremy, wouldn't you agree? The cell phones do a really good job of adding light if need to be, or taking away light. And I think if you're watching this right now and you want a surefire toolbox to get started, you've never done this before. Obviously, you're not going to do your own servers and things like that. Download OBS, it's free. The NDI input with OBS, grab yourself. I think even right now, I think it's $9.99 for the NDI camera app right now. I believe that they're still doing that sale. You can get it for your phone. It's normally $20. So you're ultimately only spending $10 to get your VBS or your outdoor summer, maybe it's a church picnic, up and running. I mean, you really can't beat that. I mean, I sound like a Radio Shack commercial for nine
Well,
ninety
well,
nine. You know.
well, explain what that for the people who may not know. What does that NDI app do, basically?
So the NDI application on your phone allows the camera to talk to pieces of software like OBS. If you're not familiar with what OBS is, it's a camera switching application to add graphics, kind of like what you're seeing now with us here. Um, you can use other softwares. There's paid solutions out there, but to get started, OBS being the free solution, you can just put that app on your phone and or your tablet. If you have an iPad, you don't want to use your phone, connect to the Wi-Fi network at the church and send it to your OBS, and you'll have that feed not only in the church, but then you'll have it outside the church, and the kids are playing or there's a volleyball game going on. Something that you want to share with the community to let them see what your church is about. Jeremy, would you agree?
Yeah, and using a tool like that makes it a more polished. It gives you the ability to polish it a little bit more, make it nicer than just streaming, right off your phone, going straight to Facebook. So you can put on graphics and things like that really spice it up and help create that engagement. So like Stephen was talking about that third screen experience and how to do that. So for my church, we've implemented a lot of QR codes So you scan in that QR code to say, hey, it's my first time here or first time watching, and then they can engage in service that way. So giving that polished look with graphics, it's huge for not just putting content out, but having people engage back in with that live stream.
Yeah, you have to make it easy for them.
Right, exactly.
And Julia, you mentioned about in that one article about during that news about online giving, right? And I think Jeremy's idea of the QR code set that up for your PayPal, your online giving, whatever you're using. That's ideal.
Yeah, online giving, connection cards. So if it is your first time visiting a church, or you want to learn more, it's just a, hey, whip up my phone, open the camera, and scan that QR code, and I'm immediately connected to the website or the giving link for the church or ministry.
Yeah, I mean that's just become so such a part of our everyday life now. When I go to a restaurant anymore, there's no menus. It's the QR
Yep,
code.
yep.
Well, and during the pandemic, I remember going to a restaurant when they first started opening the restaurants, and they had a little card in the center where you have your napkins and everything, and it says, "Please scan me for the menu," and it comes up on your phone, and you sit there. I mean, that's the first I ever seen that, especially in a small town that I'm in where they're not. Hate to say it, they're not really technically savvy. I thought that was really ingenious.
Are we saying you need to get out a little bit more, Stephen? Is that
I'm
what
thinking so because, like, it's funny because I went to the local McDonald's on this topic, and I wanted to use Apple Pay. I'd never used Apple Pay before, and I said to the girl, and she told me the price, and I says, "All right, I'm going to use Apple Pay." She looked at me like I was from Mars, and it says it right on the window. We now accept Apple Pay, so that's what I'm dealing with in the area that I'm at. So,
that's awesome.
Well, as the mother of a teenage daughter, I'm well aware of Apple Pay.
well, yeah, now it's more readily available, but I think when it first came out, McDonald's was touting that, so I was like, "Oh, I got to try it. I got to try it." Yeah,
Right.
they had no clue.
No, I mean that's fantastic, and it's so easy too for anyone to create those QR codes. So it also helps on when it comes to like lots of printed materials that cost a lot of money, and I've been in this communications industry for a long time, and paper's very expensive. So
Well, Julia, from a non-technical standpoint, what do you think the most challenging thing has been for you as a church goer attender? What's been the most difficult way for you to connect? I mean, from outside that technical point, maybe that would help folks. Going to turn the table on you a little bit here.
yeah, I would say there hasn't been, at least in our area, enough like adoption of the whole like Zoom rooms and groups. Like I think there's so much more that can be done where like-minded people are interacting more on like those committee topics, for instance. And many of the people who attend my church, we have students who go, children who go to the same Catholic school, which is like right across the street. So, parents of those students like may want to have a group. And I would just like to see more kind of integration of that being part of the weekly service. Like, hey, after service, like this is where this group will meet on Zoom to talk about this. So I don't know that it's a challenge, more so than just instead of everybody waiting out like the pandemic's going to end, everything's going to go back to normal. Let's like start to adopt some of these things as part of our everyday practice, because there's just so much value to it. Like I just think about how many even like telehealth visits, for instance. It's just easier if you have a quick visit, or you need to talk to someone. It's just easier to do it on Zoom than it is to go and make an appointment and drive 25 minutes.
Yeah. And one thing we've seen a lot of our customers reaching out to us, saying is, hey, how do I help my church engage in watch parties? Because they may be part of a smaller cohort or community where they've been around each other just for that community support side of it, so they feel comfortable engaging and being together as kind of like a cohort. we want to do a family watch party. So maybe 4 or 5 families get together at somebody's house and watch. So being able to stream, not just on like Facebook or something like that, but having Roku channels built out, so like, hey, I just go to this Roku channel and engage. But I think one of the biggest asks we get is, hey, what about live chat? We want the ability to engage with other congregation members through chatting, and so we always point to like the church online platform. I don't know how many people on here are familiar with the church online platform, but it's a huge tool, a free tool, put out by Life Church, where you just embed your video there for the church, and you have a chat functionality. You can take notes there, and it's super engaging. So we have a lot of people who like that aspect, to be able to chat there and engage with other congregation members with church online.
I think that's a great point too, because there's always going to be certain audiences who don't equate YouTube with with worship, right?
Mm.
Where
Yep.
they think, well, wait a minute, there might be some hesitancy there. And that engagement in that chat is so important, because why do we go to worship in the first place? We're praying for people who are sick. We're trying to, help people through tough times. We're also there to celebrate all the happy milestones in life too. But I
Yep.
mean, by its very nature, worship is about engagement and chatting.
Yep. Yeah, it's that community. And I know Stephen put that graphic up pretty quickly, but you do have the ability with that too to do individual prayer requests. So if you have an online pastor who's engaged that way, you can do a sideline chat and be able to have anonymous or one-on-one prayer requests and engagement that way, where it's not public. So you can chat publicly, but then you can kind of take it off to the side chat and help out that way. It's amazing that a tool like this is free, but I know, Life Church, they put out the YouVersion Bible, which is on just about every smartphone in the world. But they love being able to serve communities like this with free tools.
Yeah, that private chat feature, that is great, because that's not something that you would get on YouTube unless you were
Yeah.
pointing people to an unpublished page, right? You'd really
Right.
have it would be a struggle.
Well, the thing
Yep.
the thing with YouTube that I think a lot of people forget is, unless you have a following on YouTube or you've really built a following, you just become another
Yep.
number in the sea of other content out there, and it's really hard to get found
Yeah.
on YouTube. And up until the pandemic, we really didn't stream to YouTube because of that. We went to other platforms. We've had more success on Roku and platforms
Mhm.
like that. But more and more now, it's really good for leaving your content in a place where people can go and see past services. Because you mentioned, Jeremy, earlier about the elderly. The elderly understand YouTube because they have an app on their phone that says YouTube, or their iPad, so they know to look up the church name and they can go that. That's what we've found. And also Facebook. Facebook has
Yep.
been a tremendous tool for us, because everybody and their grandmother is on Facebook. So you're just not going to get quality on Facebook. That's
Yep.
the unfortunate part.
Yep. And a big part of that too is that our customers, we see a lot of concern around this is, hey, my viewers are getting bombarded with other ads or post-roll video suggestions on Facebook or YouTube, where they're like, yeah, I don't want that. So they want more of a private experience. And so there's a huge advantage of doing a privately hosted stream versus being on those social media platforms. But the way I love my pastor's philosophy on it. He's like, we're gonna have a space where our church congregation can gather, but we're still gonna put those billboards out to try and get people's attention, and that's Facebook and YouTube. So as people are scrolling through their feed or something like that, they may see our stream that way, and then we try and engage them in to the community more, which is our private watch page.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Um, I wanted to, if we have time, I want to go back to something that you'd mentioned about the ease of use, because that's something we see too, especially coming into the summer months, and people are feeling more comfortable to go out on vacation. And I'm actually going on vacation next week. I'll be gone from my church where I run the live stream, and so having the ability to automate something is huge, where you're not having to go in and click live, like go live. So so I was working with one of our volunteers and telling her like, hey, the live stream is all set up. You don't have to do anything. It's gonna go live. So that's one huge aspect where we might be seeing volunteer drop off, or people going on summer vacations, and less people being around to help in services. But automation has been a huge help, for some of our customers, and what we see them loving the most is, hey, I don't have to click go live. Tell me more about this. I don't have to go out and get stream keys and post in stream URLs anymore. I love that fact. So ease of use, we're seeing a huge ask for as well, for a lot of the communities.
And is that something, Jeremy, that your company can actually do, like just really make it complete one-stop shopping?
Yeah, we get a calendar view of, I can set up a calendar view of, hey, my service goes live at 10:30 in the morning, but we do a rehearsal at 9:30, and I want to capture that. So I start in, like, for my church specifically, we start encoding at 9:30. I can go in and look at that, make sure it looks good and sounds good, and then at 10:30 when we go live, it automatically starts streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and our embedded video on Church Online platform. So my all my volunteers, I don't have to think about that anymore on a Sunday morning. I just know that it works. And before the pandemic happened, before lockdown happened, we had so many churches that they didn't even think about their live stream. They went live every Sunday, but they never thought about it. So it was extremely painless for them. And then when lockdown happened, they're like, "How do we go live? Like, how do we do this?" They had to rethink that whole process because they were so used to it just being automated. And we're seeing that more going back into live services. Like, hey, I don't want to have to think about this. How do I do that?
Yeah, and when you don't have to think about the technology, again, you can focus more on the content.
Yep.
And, that's something that, that's so important, focusing on that music ministry side of things, or, focusing on, some parishes have to, the pastor may do everything, right? They
Mhm.
have to come up with a sermon and do like, it's too much, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was actually talking to a worship leader, or actually a band member recently, and he's like, "Man, the worst feeling in the world is when I'm up on stage playing drums and I feel my phone vibrating in my pocket, and I see like, hey, the live stream didn't work, and I'm sitting back there." He's like, "Can you help me fix that?" I'm like, "Yes, definitely."
Yep.
So for him to think, "Hey, I'm up here playing my instrument, I'm playing drums or playing guitar. I don't want to have to think about the live stream."
Well, let's go one step further. What about if you're shorthanded?
Yeah.
Prime example, yesterday, my buddy, he goes to a different church, and he put out a picture on Facebook where he's playing bass. He plays just about every instrument, but he was shorthanded. He was playing bass for one of the service and running sound. So he was literally standing with a wireless system on his bass in the back of the church so he could easily access and hear the sound from the house by just pulling an earphone off and mixing on an iPad while he's playing in the service.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so that's the technology that we have here. But I mean, churches run into that. Julie, you mentioned about the pastor doing everything.
Mhm.
There's a local church here that we've been helping out, and the pastor, he's God bless him, he's like in his 70s, and his grandson he ran most of their live stream and their video and audio production, but sometimes like he just graduated, so he's going to be going off to college, and sometimes he's not there, so the pastor has to know how to do everything. So we kind of been setting it up to where he can make it work he might not get all the fancy switches and things like that, but at least get the message out there, right?
Right. And you know, the bottom line, that something that we strive to do anyway, you know this, Stephen, at PTZOptics, is, you know, we want to bring that level of learning so that people are confident doing their live streams and feel really good about it, and they're not just, you know, kind of you know, clunking it together, so to speak. And you know, it takes time and effort, but with technology and with new innovations, there are sort of these like one button scenarios.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because of the HuddleCam HD, one of our sister companies, the Simple Track 2 camera. I believe Paul's going to be talking about that July 1st, I want to say. The new
Yes,
feature in there where you can actually trigger macros and other types of commands from inside of the camera,
through
and
NDI.
through NDI, through over the network, and that's something I do here in my studio, even for some of the shows that I do, where I can set a hotspot where I walk in front of that, and it might drop my lower third, it might take out my graphic, bring up my outro, and then fade the black and stop the recording. I know it's a lot, that's a mouthful, but it's automated, like Jeremy's saying. And you could set it up to do multiple automations to where that camera, basically, if you only need one camera, it's following you, it's doing everything you need to do, and it does it. So that's actually the camera that the church purchased that's up the road from me that I've been working with, and they love the fact that it follows them and does all that stuff with them.
It's old
Yeah.
school TV production that's, you know, can be done with just one person or automated, like you mentioned.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see how that technology really took off because I tested some cameras with auto tracking and things like that a few years ago, and it just wasn't there. But it's like I think that's one of those things that came out of the pandemic and the lockdown is really the investment in technology like that, where you know they dumped a ton of resources in. Hey, how do I simplify this one man shoot experience where things are so automated? So having those tracking cameras do so much is super exciting to see.
Anything else that you two would like to add on this whole like summer streaming vacation Bible school scenario? As I mentioned, you know, children participating in singing. Are there things that we need to pay attention to specifically from an audio perspective in those spaces? Do you like to see a certain kind of microphone being utilized for, you know, performances and things like that? Any other tips that you could maybe recommend?
Yeah, that gets into a probably a touchy subject because audio people, you know, I kind of joke as being, you know, audio and video, so I ride that line of both. But audio people get so particular about their mics and things. But for an environment like that where it's a lot of outdoor space or even a lot of kids together, just getting a good um, you know, ambient mic that can pick up all the kids, but then having a couple key shotgun microphones that really focuses in on, you know, if kids are singing solos, you can focus in on that. But having an ambient microphone to pick up all that energy of the kids is, I think, a key importance. So you get that energy in the live stream. You hear all the kids talking and excitement, but then having the ability to switch audio. So having a little mixer, audio mixer, and dial in shotgun mic that's focused on one person. But having you know a headset on kids is really challenging. We tried that at a performance at a previous church, and I think we broke, man, probably half a dozen mics, doing something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not easy.
I kind of agree with Jeremy on that. What you can get in, like, I have my favorite mics, he has his favorite mics, but the one thing I try to do to keep it simple too, like you were saying about a mixer, I step back even a little bit. I kind of use an audio interface just to make it, because I don't need any kind of auxiliary send outside, because all I need is headphones to be able to listen to them if they're, talking or whatever. But the shotgun mic idea is phenomenal, or having some kind of ambient mic to get that room so it doesn't sound like it's studio.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times, like I said, I mentioned before with the camcorder streaming outside, I put like a Rode shotgun mic on the top. I have two different windscreens. I have a dead cat, which looks like a fluffy cover for it. I know it's a weird name, but that's what it's called. And then you have your traditional styrofoam windsock that goes over top of it, and you just got to switch between them, because if it's windy outside, you want the dead cat on there. Otherwise, you're just gonna hear on the microphone. So I think understanding what you need outside and what you're doing, I think that's the big thing. But honestly, I think keeping it simple, you know, and I'm again, I go back to the cell phone. The cell phone has pretty decent audio for what you're trying to accomplish. Capture the moment going forward. I think, Julia, unless you're doing like a really high end concert or something really, elaborate, I think just going forward with using your cell phone, at least right now, you're a couple weeks in, or, I know our vacation Bible school starts in 3 weeks. So, we're going with what we got.
Yep.
Exactly. And would you recommend that, for people who are performing this very vital function for schools and houses of worship, uh, have a dedicated person for audio and a dedicated person for video? Yes.
Yeah, if it's at all possible, if they have the resources to do that, audio and video are such different animals, so to speak, where it's like you can ruin things real quick when your video looks bad or if your audio sounds bad. So being able to focus strategically on each is hugely important. But again, it's all about resources. If you don't have it, make sure your audio sounds good, because people will be willing to suffer through less quality video if it sounds good to them. So that's a big key is make sure you're paying attention to that. It's not clipping. It's easy to hear, things like that make it where people can engage.
I agree totally. I'm not even going to touch that one. He hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, I mean, we've all learned that from video conferencing, right? I mean, even if somebody's camera doesn't connect, if we can hear the person on the far end,
That's
then
it.
it all
Yep.
works.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. I think that's the big takeaway. Get your audio dialed in, and I like the idea of having somebody separate to run it. We have a guy that I've kind of worked with, so I can focus on the video side. He focuses on the audio. Neither of us proclaim to be audio professionals, but we know enough to be dangerous and make it sound good. So that's all that matters. And then if we get into real trouble, we call my buddy who does know a lot about audio, and we're like, take a listen to this on a Facebook page. We created a not listed page. Maybe this is a good tip to have before services that we're unsure of, or if the audio is just not right, or maybe we're having problems with video. We'll stream it to a private page that only a few of us have, and we'll all watch it and see what's going on and see if we can isolate the problem. So that might be a tip for somebody out there to do that, especially with Facebook giving you that opportunity to do that.
Yep.
That's probably one of the most important tips that I've learned through this process, and I'm very new to the whole live streaming industry, relatively speaking. I came from radio prior to this, but is test, 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 right? Keep testing and try it
Yep.
out. And,
Yep.
it doesn't have to be live to the world, just test it among a few people. And
100%.
Yeah, and,
so,
and what I shared it earlier, but like how I have my encoder turn on about an hour before our service goes live, that gives me I think I mentioned previously I'm part of a portable church, so it's load in, load out every Sunday. We're setting everything up, tearing everything down. So it gives me the opportunity in my busy morning to sit down and look at the rehearsal video and listen to it. So I can make sure the camera's connected properly. I can make sure the light looks right. I can do that. So even though I have volunteers in those specific areas doing each thing, I, as kind of the manager, so to speak, I have the ability to trust what they've done, but verify it and make sure it looks good. So then I don't have to stream that out anywhere. It gives me the opportunity to pre-service to monitor that, and right just before we go live.
Yeah, providing that layer of like quality assurance, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's important. And then you know, you're continually evolving and refining your processes based on what you learn.
Yep. Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you guys would like to share? We're winding up on. We've been together for just about an hour. Anything else you'd like to share about, you know, summer streaming specifically, or any sounding and lighting technologies that are kind of on the horizon of your radar screens?
Well, again, being a smaller church, we're constantly looking for new options. So I'm excited. We're ramping up for this fall, and I think video switching is really our next big step. Is adding multiple cameras to our space, getting a professional production switcher. We're looking at the Ross video switchers. I know Stephen really has enjoyed the TriCasters. Are great video switchers. Software solutions like OBS, Wirecast, vMix, all those, they've been great for what we've done to some degree. Although we have it's burned us a few times. So we're looking for, constantly increasing, like you mentioned, Julia, and making that production better and better. So that's what we're focused on, and just seeing what happens and is rolled out at NAB this year.
Yeah,
Steven?
it should be pretty interesting. I guess my tip that I have for outside, don't set your subject in front of the sun and point your camera at it, please. Just this is a half joke, but I've seen people do that, and yeah, it just doesn't come out right. So don't
Well,
do that.
that's called a silhouette.
Yeah, don't do that. And I think that, with what Jeremy was saying, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of what you're shooting at, so to give you the best quality, because obviously you're not taking a ton of lights outside. You probably don't have the equipment to do that. So, but like Jeremy, I'm really interested to see what NAB is going to bring, especially since we didn't have it last year and it's kind of late this year. So it'll be interesting to see the technologies, and I'm also interested in the automation technologies to make life easier as a solo producer slash host of my shows. Anything that I can do to make my job a little bit easier rather than pressing buttons, I'm all for it, Julia.
No, that makes sense. And NAB, for those who don't know, it's the National Association of Broadcasters. They have a meeting, a large scale trade show, I guess you would say, every year, twice a year actually. And this one is happening in early October in Las Vegas. That's their mainstay. They also do one in New York in the spring. So yeah, there it is, October 9th to the 13th. And sounds like both of you will be there.
I'm still waiting on confirmation on that. I'm hoping to go, although I know it's a busy time. So it's a fun show. I always my wife always jokes with me. It's like the biggest nerd fest in the world because of all the technology in one place. It's
I
like a
I've
yeah.
said that, Julia and Jeremy. I've said that it's like my Super Bowl. Everybody looks forward to the Super Bowl. I look forward to NAB because it's all your toys. It's Christmas morning. You get to go there and see everything that you want, and it's going to cost you, and you got to explain to your wife when you get home as to why you need that particular item.
Yep.
I've
Exactly.
already started my speech.
This is the reason why we need this, right?
Hey, I try.
Well, you know, it's so great having the two of you who are educators of others in this industry because, you know, as I alluded to in the beginning of today's show with that article, is that, you know, people come in at all different levels. And, you know, even if you're just starting with a cell phone, it's possible. And you can do a lot, especially with the power of some of these tools that are just recently released like NDI. So thank you both so much for being with me again for our second edition of Salt Talk. We will join you every month, the last Tuesday of the month. So feel free to send us any ideas for future shows, any burning questions that you may have. You can reach me at julia.sherwin at ptzoptics.com. Thanks, everyone.